One decision changes everything. The land is no longer just land, it's a battlefield. And in Landman Season 2, Episode 7, someone is about to cross a line they can never step back from. The silence before chaos is always the loudest. Episode 7 opens with that exact feeling, the kind where you know something bad is coming. But you don't know who it will hit first. Deals are hanging by a thread. Trust is wearing thin. And the land everyone is fighting over feels like it's watching, waiting. Every character walks into this episode carrying fear they won't admit and plans they won't fully explain. The pressure that has been building since the start of Season 2 is no longer hidden under calm words and fake smiles. It's right there, heavy and dangerous. This episode doesn't rush into action. Instead, it tightens the grip. Conversations feel colder. Looks last longer. Every pause means something. You can sense that someone is about to be pushed too far, not by enemies, but by the choices they've already made. Power no longer feels safe. Money no longer feels secure. And loyalty? Loyalty feels like the biggest risk of all. Episode 7 sets the tone immediately. No one is in control anymore. The deals that once seemed solid now feel fragile. The land that promised profit now carries consequences. And the people who thought they were playing the game are realizing the game is playing them. This is the moment where the cost of survival becomes clear. And not everyone is ready to pay it. If you thought Season 2 was building towards something big, this is where the ground starts to crack. By the end of the last episode, nothing felt settled. It looked calm on the surface, but underneath, everything was shaking. Deals that once felt locked in were suddenly questioned. Promises that sounded strong started to feel empty. The land, the money, and the power around it all began to pull people in different directions. Everyone believed they were making the right move, but deep down, doubt had already crept in. The pressure didn't come from one single problem. It came from many small ones piling up at the same time. One bad decision led to another. One secret opened the door to more lies. People started saying less, not because they had nothing to say, but because saying the wrong thing could destroy everything. Trust became fragile. Even longtime partners began to look at each other like strangers. What made it worse was that everyone thought they were ahead of the game. Each character believed they had control, that they were thinking 5 steps ahead. But Episode 6 made it clear, control is an illusion. The moment you think you've won, the ground shifts. The land doesn't care who you are, or how smart you think you are. It only responds to pressure, and that pressure is now at its peak. Relationships took a hit in ways that couldn't be undone easily. Conversations that should have been honest were filled with half-truths. Silence was used as a weapon. People avoided eye contact because eye contact meant answering questions they weren't ready to face. The tension wasn't loud, but it was everywhere. In every room, in every deal, in every choice that followed. The land itself became a symbol of everything going wrong. What once meant opportunity now meant risk. What once promised freedom now felt like a trap. Everyone wanted a piece of it, but no one wanted to take responsibility for the damage it caused. The deeper they dug, the more they realized they were stuck in something bigger than themselves. By the time Episode 6 ended, it was clear that Episode 7 wouldn't be about planning anymore. It would be about consequences. The kind that doesn't wait. The kind that shows up when you least expect it and demands a price. Lines that were once flexible are now solid. And the people standing on either side of those lines know that stepping back may no longer be an option. This is where Episode 7 begins. Not with answers, but with fallout. Not with peace, but with tension that refuses to stay quiet. The past choices are no longer in the past. They're here, breathing down everyone's neck. Ready to turn pressure into something far more dangerous? Episode 7 does not arrive quietly. It moves in like a storm that everyone saw coming, but hoped would change direction. From the very first moments, there is a feeling that time is running out. The characters are no longer reacting calmly. They are reacting out of fear, out of pride, and out of desperation. Every move feels rushed, yet heavy. Every word sounds like it might be the wrong one. This episode shifts the energy of the season. Earlier episodes were about setting traps and testing limits. Episode 7 is about those traps snapping shut. People who thought they could balance risk and reward are now forced to choose sides. There is no safe middle anymore. You either protect what you have, or you lose it. The tension rises because threats no longer come from far away. They are close. Too close. Pressure comes from unexpected places. A phone call that arrives at the wrong time. A meeting that feels more like a warning. A silence that says more than words ever could. The danger isn't loud or violent. It's slow and uncomfortable, creeping into every corner of their lives. One of the strongest feelings in this episode is uncertainty. No one fully knows who they can trust. Allies feel unstable. Enemies feel smarter. Even family ties begin to feel strained under the weight of money and power. Episode 7 shows how quickly loyalty can change when survival is on the line. What people say no longer matters as much as what they do next. The land remains at the center of everything, but it no longer feels like an opportunity. It feels like a test of character, a test of patience, a test of how far someone is willing to go when their back is against the wall. Every decision made in this episode carries weight because the land remembers every mistake. Episode 7 also pushes characters into moments they have been avoiding. Conversations they didn't want to have finally happen. Questions they hoped would disappear are asked out loud. And once those words are spoken, there is no taking them back. The tension comes not from action alone, but from the fear of what happens after the truth comes out. There is a strong sense that someone is about to lose everything, not because they made one big mistake, but because they made too many small ones. Episode 7 makes it clear that survival in this world isn't about being the strongest. It's about being ready to face the cost of your choices. As the episode moves forward, the pressure builds scene by scene. There are no calm breaks, no safe moments. Even quiet scenes feel dangerous because you know something is about to break. The storm isn't just coming from outside forces. It's coming from inside the people who thought they could control it. By the end of episode 7, one truth becomes impossible to ignore. This season has crossed a point of no return. Whatever happens next will change the game forever. And the people standing on this land are about to find out that some prices are higher than they ever imagined. Episode 7 turns the spotlight on the people caught in the middle of the fight. The ones who thought they were protected by position, history, or relationships. This is the point where the show reminds us that no one is untouchable. Power doesn't come with safety anymore. In fact, the closer someone is to power, the more dangerous their position becomes. Every character enters this episode carrying something heavy. Some carry guilt. Some carry fear. Others carry anger they've been holding back for far too long. What makes episode 7 stand out is how clearly it shows that these emotions are no longer hidden. They start to leak into conversations, into decisions, into moments where people should be calm but simply can't be anymore. Trust is the biggest thing at risk here. People who once stood side by side now question each other's motives. A simple look across a room feels loaded. A pause in conversation feels suspicious. Episode 7 shows how quickly loyalty can break when pressure keeps rising and answers refuse to come. Even those who believe they are doing the right thing start to wonder if they're protecting themselves or betraying someone else. Family ties don't offer comfort anymore. Instead, they become another source of tension. Expectations clash with reality. Old promises don't fit the current situation. Characters who once relied on family support now feel trapped by it. Episode 7 explores how love can turn into pressure when survival becomes the priority. Business relationships are no safer. Deals that once felt fair now feel like traps. Words like partnership and trust lose their meaning when money is on the line. Episode 7 shows how quickly respect disappears once someone senses weakness. People stop listening. They start pushing. And once they realize someone is vulnerable, they don't hold back. What makes this episode powerful is how personal everything feels. The risks aren't just financial anymore. Reputations are at stake. Futures are at stake. For some characters, Their entire identity is tied to the land and the deals surrounding it. Losing control doesn't just mean losing money. It means losing who they believe they are. There's also a growing fear that not everyone will make it out clean. Episode 7 plants the idea that someone may take the fall for choices made by many. The question isn't just who will lose, but who will be blamed. And in a world where truth is flexible, blame becomes a weapon. As the episode unfolds, characters are forced into moments of decision they can't delay anymore. Staying silent becomes just as dangerous as speaking up. Walking away feels impossible, but staying might cost them everything. Episode 7 captures that feeling of being cornered, where every option feels wrong, yet a choice must be made. By the time this section of the story settles in, one thing is clear: the real danger isn't the land itself. It's the people fighting over it. And in Episode 7, the lines between ally and enemy blur so much that even the strongest characters begin to wonder if they are standing on the right side, or if they ever were. Episode 7 makes one thing painfully clear: power always demands payment. What once looked like success now feels like a weight pressing down on everyone involved. The land that promised freedom and wealth has become a reminder that nothing is ever truly owned without consequences. Every character who chased control is now forced to face what that control has taken from them. This episode slows down just enough to let the cost sink in. Power no longer feels exciting. It feels exhausting. People wake up already tired, already stressed, already preparing for the next fight. There is no peace in being on top when everyone below is waiting for you to fall. Episode 7 shows how power isolates people, cutting them off from trust, comfort, and honesty. The pressure comes from all sides. There are expectations to meet, deals to protect, and images to maintain. Weakness cannot be shown, even when it's felt deeply. Characters hide their fear behind firm voices and confident expressions, but cracks begin to show. A slight hesitation, a forced smile, a decision made too quickly. Episode 7 uses these moments to show how power slowly wears people down. What makes the cost feel heavier is that many characters didn't start out wanting dominance. They wanted stability, security, a future. But somewhere along the way, survival turned into control, and control turned into obsession. Episode 7 forces them to look at how far they've drifted from their original goals. And that realization hurts more than any outside threat. The land itself becomes a symbol of this cost. It gives, and it takes, but it never forgets. Every deal leaves a mark. Every shortcut leaves damage. Episode 7 reminds us that digging deeper doesn't always lead to reward. Sometimes it just leads to collapse. The deeper the characters go, the harder it becomes to climb back out. There's also a growing realization that power creates enemies without trying. Even silence can be seen as a threat. Even caution can be mistaken for betrayal. Episode 7 shows how quickly relationships change when one person has more control than the other. Respect fades. Fear replaces it. And fear always leads to resistance. Some characters begin to question whether the price is worth paying. They look at what they've gained and compare it to what they've lost. Peace, trust, connection. But walking away is no longer simple. The cost of leaving might be just as high as the cost of staying. Episode 7 traps them in that space where every option feels dangerous. The emotional weight of this episode comes from quiet moments. Moments where characters sit alone, thinking about choices they can't undo. Moments where they realize that power has changed them in ways they don't recognize. Episode 7 doesn't need big speeches to show this. It lets silence do the work. By the end of this section, one truth stands out. Power isn't the reward, it's the test. And Episode 7 proves that not everyone who wanted it is prepared to handle what it demands. The land doesn't just reveal who is strong, it reveals who is willing to pay the price, who may already be running out of time. Episode 7 reaches a point where hesitation becomes impossible. This is where the story quietly but firmly closes the door on second chances. Up until now, characters believed they still had time. Time to fix mistakes, time to change plans, time to smooth things over. But this episode takes that comfort away. The feeling is clear. Whatever happens next is permanent. The tension in this part of the episode doesn't explode all at once. Instead, it tightens slowly, like a rope being pulled just a little more with every scene. Each character senses it. They may not say it out loud, but they know they are standing at the edge of something they can't undo. The choices ahead are not about winning anymore. They are about surviving the fallout. What makes this moment powerful is how ordinary it feels on the surface. Conversations happen in familiar places. Faces remain calm. Voices stay low, but underneath everything has changed. Episode 7 shows how life-altering decisions are often made in quiet moments, not dramatic ones. A single sentence spoken differently. A pause that lasts too long. A decision to act instead of wait. The idea of control completely breaks down here. Characters who once believed they could manage every outcome realize they are reacting, not leading. Events move faster than plans. People respond emotionally instead of strategically. Episode 7 makes it clear that pressure doesn't just test strength, it exposes fear. And fear drives decisions that logic never would. There is also a strong sense of isolation in this section. Even when characters are surrounded by others, they feel alone. They stop sharing their thoughts. They stop asking for advice. Everyone believes they must face this moment on their own. Episode 7 captures how power and pressure can separate people, even those who once trusted each other completely. This is where consequences stop being abstract. They become real, immediate, personal. A choice made here doesn't just affect business or land, it affects lives, relationships, and futures. Episode 7 doesn't spell out the damage right away. Instead, it lets the weight of possibility hang in the air, making every moment feel heavy. One of the strongest ideas in this section is that backing out is no longer an option. Even characters who want to step away realize they are too deep. Walking away would cause just as much damage as staying. Episode 7 places them in a situation where movement itself is dangerous, yet standing still is impossible. Emotionally, this section hits hardest because of what isn't said. Regret is visible, but unspoken. Fear is present, but denied. Pride keeps people moving forward even when they know the cost will be high. Episode 7 trusts the audience to feel this tension without needing clear explanations. As this part of the episode closes, the story reaches a silent breaking point. Nothing has exploded yet, but everything is ready to. The ground hasn't collapsed, but cracks are everywhere. Episode 7 makes one promise very clear. Once this line is crossed, there is no going back. Whatever comes next will define who these people truly are, not by what they wanted, but by what they were willing to do when there was no safe choice left. Episode 7 reaches a stage where hidden things refuse to stay hidden anymore. This is the moment when secrets buried carefully over time begin to rise to the surface, not all at once, but in pieces that slowly change how everyone sees the situation. What once felt manageable now feels exposed. And once exposure begins, control fades quickly. The tension here comes from collision, not just between people, but between truth and denial. Characters are forced to face realities they avoided for too long. Some learn that the people they trusted most were never fully honest. Others realize that their own silence helped create the mess they are now trapped in. Episode 7 shows that secrets don't disappear. They wait for the worst possible moment to return. What makes this section powerful is how personal everything becomes. This is no longer about land alone. It's about pride, fear, and the need to protect what little remains. When secrets come out, reactions are raw and unfiltered. There is anger, disbelief, and quiet disappointment that cuts deeper than shouting ever could. Episode 7 allows these reactions to breathe, making every reveal feel heavy and real. Some characters try to explain themselves. Others stay silent, knowing that words won't fix the damage anymore. Episode 7 highlights how truth doesn't always bring relief. Sometimes it brings chaos. Once something is said out loud, it cannot be taken back. And once people hear it, they begin to act differently. This is also where trust finally breaks for some relationships. Not in dramatic explosions, but in small moments where understanding disappears. A look that says, "I don't know you anymore." Pause where support used to be. Episode 7 captures how trust doesn't always shatter loudly. Sometimes it just fades, leaving nothing solid behind. The pressure intensifies because consequences start to feel unavoidable. Decisions made earlier now demand answers. People are forced to own their actions, even when they are not ready to face the results. Episode 7 shows that accountability doesn't wait for permission. It arrives when the situation demands it. There is also a shift in power during this section. Information becomes more valuable than money. Those who know the truth gain leverage, while those who hid it lose control. Episode 7 makes it clear that knowledge can protect or destroy, depending on who holds it and how they use it. Emotionally, this section hits hard because it removes illusions. Characters who believed they were prepared realize they underestimated the cost of honesty. Others discover that hiding the truth protected them for a while, but it also made the fallout worse. Episode 7 doesn't judge these choices. It simply shows their impact. As this part of the episode moves forward, atmosphere becomes heavier. Conversations feel final. Options disappear. The sense that something irreversible has happened settles in even before the full damage is revealed. Episode 7 doesn't rush to resolution here. It lets the discomfort stay, reminding us that consequences don't always arrive instantly, but they always arrive eventually by the end of this section. One thing is certain. The story has shifted again. The rules have changed, and the people involved now understand that what